In 1811, an unusual substance was discovered by a French chemist and manufacturer of saltpeter named Bernard Courtois. As explained in this video, when the discovery was announced 2 years later, it would attract the immediate attentions of Joseph Louis Gay-Lussac and Humphrey Davy, two of the leading chemists of the era. The substance had the appearance of a metal at ordinary temperatures, but would turn to an intensely colored violet gas on heating. It was discovered when Courtois attempted to use seaweed as a substitute for wood ashes in his process to produce saltpeter, an ingredient for gunpowder that is now known as potassium nitrate. At the time, gunpowder was in strong demand as the French Emperor Napoleon was in the midst of a number of campaigns to expand his empire and had been at war with England since 1803. This situation meant, of course, that Gay-Lussac and Davy, who had both made important discoveries in the preceding years, represented opposing sides of the warring nations. Gay-Lussac had discovered laws concerning the physical and chemical properties of gases. Davy, who had benefited from opportunism rather than a formal education, had spectacularly exploited the new power of electricity to isolate sodium and potassium. In addition, just prior to the discovery of iodine, they had both carried out investigations on a yellow gas, now known to be chlorine, that had previously been studied by two other important chemists. Swedish apothecarist Carl Wilhelm Scheele had discovered the yellow gas nearly 4 decades previously, but in a sign of the confusions of the time named it dephlogisticated marine acid. Claude Berthollet popularized its use as a disinfectant in Paris. However, noting its acidity in aqueous solution and Lavoisier's assertion that oxygen is the acid-giving principle, in a 1785 paper he concluded that it is a compound of oxygen and the acid then known as muriatic, now known as hydrochloric. At the time in question, Berthollet, like other prominent scientists including Laplace and Humboldt, had a large house in Arcueil, which at the time was a leafy suburb of Paris, and it was here that he would give the opportunity to young graduates from the Imperial Institute of France to work in his laboratories. Two of those chemists, Gay-Lussac and Louis-Jacques Thenard, would write a lengthy report on their investigations into the yellow gas in Mémoires de physique et de chimie de la Société d'Arcueil in 1809. Perhaps being careful not to upset established chemists, including Berthollet, they concluded that the yellow gas could be an element, but that it may be better explained as a compound. At the end of the following year, Davy, who had never shown a lack of courage which occasionally bordered on recklessness, showed no such qualms. In addition to strongly suggesting that the yellow gas is an element, he also suggested it ought to be renamed chlorine. Perhaps not surprisingly, Davy's hypothesis met opposition from a number of quarters, one of whom, Jöns Jacob Berzelius, was one of the most prolific writers of the era. Thus, in October 1813, Berzelius published a long article titled On the Nature of Muriatic Acid. In the article, he noted that the new hypothesis would mean re-evaluating the compositions of many compounds which he considered firmly established. As a result, the nature and name of the yellow gas remained controversial and a matter of interest to both Gay-Lussac and Davy. By this time, however, Davy, having obtained special permission from Napoleon, had set off on a European tour with his recently hired assistant Michael Faraday and his new wife Jane Aprise. As chance would have it, they would be in Paris when the discovery of the new substance was announced by Nicolas Clamont and Charles Desormes, two young scientists who had investigated it on behalf of Courtois. The news was first printed in the Journal de Paris on 3rd of December. As noted in Annals of Philosophy under the title A Singular New Discovered Body, Clement and Desormes had observed chemical similarities to chlorine, but they had not commented clearly on its nature, something which was clearly going to interest Gay-Lussac and Davy. First credit goes to Gay-Lussac, whose initial studies were read to the Institute on 6th of December, at which point the new substance had been named, due to its colour, as iodine. In his usual careful manner, he noted that iodine is most likely to be an element, and further noted that this lent support to Davy's hypothesis concerning chlorine. Within a week, having carried out experiments using his travelling apparatus, Davy sent letters to be read at the Imperial Institute in Paris and the Royal Society in London. In both he showed respect to his rival Gay-Lussac. Nonetheless, as could be expected considering his nature and his views on chlorine, he also took the opportunity to more clearly enunciate that, like chlorine, this new substance is doubtless an element. Unfortunately, however, the degree of mutual respect that was found between the rivals Davy and Gay-Lussac was not universally observed, as can be seen in a quote, possibly attributable to its editor Alexander Tilloch, from Philosophical Magazine. Nonetheless, Davy's complimentary comment concerning Gay-Lussac's sagacity turned out to be the most accurate. Gay-Lussac published his completed studies in August 1814, and it would be recognized as a classic a century later. Thus, when future Nobel laureate Wilhelm Ostwald began reprinting classic papers, Gay-Lussac's Memoires sur l'iode would be the fourth paper in the series. Thanks to these sources and their contributors, and to you for watching to the very end. Hope to see you again sometime soon.